Let me show you two images. The first, crystal clear water, sunlight piercing through to white sand, colorful fish darting between corals. It's beautiful, inviting, peaceful. Now the second, darkness. Not just deep blue, but absolute light-swallowing blackness. The water doesn't reflect, it absorbs. It doesn't reveal, it hides. The depth difference between these two scenes? Maybe 30 meters. The psychological difference? The distance between curiosity and primal terror. I'm your host, and welcome back to Anatomy of Fear. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating and specific fears humans experience, thalassophobia, the intense, often irrational fear of deep, dark bodies of water. And I want to be clear from the start, this isn't about fear of drowning. Anyone can fear drowning in a swimming pool. This is different. This is about the void, the unknown, the 95% of our oceans that remain unexplored, unmapped, unseen by human eyes. Here's what makes thalassophobia so intriguing to neuroscientists. It's incredibly specific. We're not talking about generalized water anxiety. We're talking about a fear that can be triggered by photographs, by video footage, even by video game graphics. Someone can be perfectly comfortable in a swimming pool, at the beach, even snorkeling in clear waters, but show them an image of the deep ocean abyss and their physiology changes immediately. Heart rate increases, breathing shallows, palms sweat. In the next few minutes, we're going to dissect exactly why this happens. We'll explore three critical layers of understanding. First, the evolutionary programming, why your ancient brain reads dark water as immediate danger. Second, the perceptual miscalculation, why your brain dramatically overestimates both depth and threat. And third, the most exciting part, how cutting-edge 2026 therapy is using virtual reality not to simulate the ocean, but to let you control it, fundamentally rewiring this fear response. To ground this in reality, let me introduce you to a case study that illustrates the paradox perfectly. Dr. Sarah Chen, marine biologist with 12 years of experience, PhD in marine ecology. Her daily work involves studying ocean ecosystems. In laboratories, in aquariums, during coastal research, she's completely composed. But put her on a research vessel sailing over the Mariana Trench, where the ocean floor drops to nearly 11,000 meters below, and her physiological monitoring shows a heart rate spike from 65 to over 120 beats per minute. Her breathing becomes shallow. She experiences what she describes as the abyss sensation, a visceral, gut-level feeling that something vast and unknown is beneath her. This is the paradox. Her highly trained scientific brain knows the statistics, knows she's safer on that research vessel than driving to the lab, knows that the actual threats in deep water are practical ones, currents, temperature, equipment failure, not mythical sea monsters. Yet her primitive brain, the part that evolved long before marine biology existed, sees only one thing: infinite darkness equals infinite threat. And Sarah is not an anomaly. A 2025 study from the Scripps Institute of Oceanography surveyed over 2,000 marine professionals, biologists, oceanographers, even naval architects. The finding? Nearly 1 in 4 who have dedicated their lives to understanding the ocean still feel this primal fear when facing its depths. Now let's get to the neuroscience. Why does this happen? Modern neuroimaging reveals that your brain doesn't process deep water as a single simple threat. Instead, it processes it as 4 distinct but overlapping danger signals, each activating different neural networks. Threat 1. The unknown. 95% of our oceans remain unexplored. For a brain evolved to seek predictability and control, this level of unknown is profoundly unsettling. It activates the anterior cingulate cortex, the region associated with uncertainty and error detection. Threat 2. Scale. The sheer verticality of deep water. On land, we're accustomed to horizontal threats. In deep water, the threat comes from below. This triggers specific spatial processing areas in your parietal lobe that aren't optimized for this kind of vertical assessment. Threat 3. Megafauna memory. Even though whale attacks on humans are virtually non-existent and shark attacks are statistically rarer than lightning strikes, your brain carries evolutionary memories where large creature in water meant predator. This activates the basal ganglia, responsible for automatic, learned fear responses. Threat 4. Disorientation. No visual reference points, no horizon lines, no bottom visible. This disrupts your brain's standard navigation systems, creating what's called spatial anxiety. These 4 threat signals converge in what neuroscientists term a perfect fear storm. Multiple neural systems firing simultaneously, creating an overwhelming sense of danger. But there's a 5th element, discovered through 2024 fMRI studies, that explains why thalassophobia feels so uniquely visceral compared to other fears. Let's unpack each layer, starting with what I call the aquatic adaptation gap. Your brain is running software that's been continuously updated for approximately 300,000 years of terrestrial living. But here's the crucial fact. Our last major aquatic adaptation, when our ancestors transitioned from water to land, occurred roughly 375 million years ago. That's an evolutionary gap of 374.7 million years. What does this mean practically? It means your neural hardware has no proper drivers for aquatic environments. To your amygdala, the brain's rapid threat detection system, specific visual cues trigger specific danger associations. Dark water? That means predators could be hiding here. Deep water? That means no escape if attacked. Vast open water? That means you could get lost and never find your way back. A 2024 University of Hawaii study used fMRI to examine brain activity when viewing different fear-inducing images. They made a fascinating discovery. When participants viewed images of deep, dark ocean water, their brains showed activation patterns almost identical to when they viewed images of confined, trapped spaces. Your brain, at a fundamental level, encodes the open ocean as what researchers called an expanded trap, a space that feels both vast and inescapable simultaneously. Now, layer 2, the scale distortion effect. On land, your brain calculates space and distance using reference points. Trees, buildings, horizon lines, road markers. These all help calibrate your perception. In open ocean, these reference points vanish. All that remains is verticality, the surface above, darkness below. Your brain, unable to compute how deep is this, defaults to the most conservative calculation, infinitely deep. MIT Media Lab's 2025 research on spatial perception revealed something startling. Using virtual reality simulations of ocean depths, they found that people consistently overestimate ocean depth by 300 to 700%. A virtual environment programmed to be 100 meters deep was perceived by participants as being between 300 and 700 meters deep. This isn't fear of actual depth. This is fear of your brain's own exaggerated projection, a systematic error in your spatial processing software.
Layer 3, the megafauna memory circuit. Modern statistics are clear. You're more likely to be killed by a falling coconut than by a shark. Whale attacks on humans are so rare they're essentially mythological. But your brain didn't get the statistical memo. Instead, it carries approximately 50,000 years of evolutionary memory where certain patterns meant immediate danger. When your visual system detects certain shapes in water, large moving shapes, it doesn't first analyze, is that a friendly dolphin or a dangerous shark? It defaults to the ancient programming, large moving thing in water equals potential predator. This response is mediated by the basal ganglia, a brain structure responsible for automatic, learned behaviors and fear responses that don't require conscious thought. There's also a cultural amplification effect. Consider this. Thalassophobia saw a significant spike after 1975. That's the year Steven Spielberg's Jaws was released. While your conscious mind knows the difference between cinema and reality, your primitive fear circuits don't make that distinction as clearly. Repeated exposure to media depicting ocean threats reinforces those ancient neural pathways. Layer 4, and this is crucial, the three-dimensional threat assessment. On land, threats generally come in 2 dimensions, forward, backward, left, right. You can see what's coming. In water, threats can come from 6 directions, the 4 horizontal ones, plus above and below. This extra dimensionality overloads your brain's threat assessment systems, specifically the parietal cortex, which is responsible for mapping your body in space and assessing incoming threats. This creates what I call omnidirectional vulnerability, a unique sensation that you're exposed from all directions simultaneously. It's not just that something could be below you, it's that something could be below, beside, above, anywhere. And in water, you lack the speed and agility to respond effectively to threats from any direction. Now, the practical solutions. Understanding the mechanism is useless without actionable strategies. So here are 3 evidence-based approaches, including one that's only become viable in 2026. Solution 1. The Humanized Scale Cognitive Reframe. This isn't about trying to calm down or think positive. It's about fundamentally changing how you conceptualize scale. Instead of "I am small in a vast ocean," practice "the ocean is small in my vast mind." Here's a concrete exercise. Regularly look at images of Earth from space. See the oceans as they actually are, relatively small blue patches on a relatively small planet. Then imagine that planet inside your own mind. This perspective shift activates your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the brain region involved in complex reasoning and perspective taking, while quieting the amygdala's fear response. Solution 2. The Calibrated Depth Technique. Your brain fears what it cannot measure, so give it measurements. When you encounter images or thoughts of deep water, immediately add concrete data. For example, that's not an infinite abyss, that's 50 meters deep. 50 meters is about 5 city buses stacked end to end, or about half the length of a football field. Create your own reference library. 10 meters equals a 3-story building. 50 meters equals the Leaning Tower of Pisa. 200 meters equals 2 football fields placed vertically. This technique works because it replaces abstract terror with concrete, manageable measurements. Solution 3. 2026 Inverse Exposure Virtual Reality Therapy. This is where technology meets therapy in exciting new ways. Traditional exposure therapy for thalassophobia might involve gradual exposure to ocean imagery or controlled water environments. The 2026 approach is different. Instead of simulating being in the water, new VR applications like deep-sea VR simulate controlling the water environment. You don the headset and become an underwater drone operator. You see depth gauges, sonar readings, navigational controls. You have agency, you have data. You're not vulnerable cargo, you're an explorer with tools.
Early clinical trials show remarkable results. A 74% reduction in physiological fear responses after just 6 VR sessions. Why does this work so well? Because it fundamentally changes the narrative from passive vulnerability to active exploration.
It rewires the neural pathways by associating ocean depth with control and curiosity, rather than with threat and helplessness. Let's bring this full circle. Thalassophobia isn't a personal failing. It isn't weakness. It is, quite literally, evolutionary hypervigilance operating in the wrong context. Your brain isn't broken, it's overperforming. It's a survival system so effective that it sometimes activates when it's not needed. When you feel that visceral response to deep water imagery, I want you to recognize what's actually happening. You're experiencing 375 million years of evolutionary history. You're hearing the whispers of creatures who never left the ocean, warning their descendants to stay ashore. You're witnessing the incredible efficiency of a threat detection system that has kept species alive for millennia. But here's your advantage. You have data they didn't have. You have statistics. You have scientific understanding. You have tools like VR therapy and cognitive reframing. So when that ancient alarm sounds, you now have a new response available. Thank you for trying to protect me. I appreciate the warning, but I have new information. The data says this situation is different. The statistics say I'm safe, and I choose to move forward with both caution and curiosity. Because true courage, the kind that matters, isn't the absence of fear. It's the informed decision to proceed despite understanding exactly why every ancient circuit in your brain is lighting up with warning signals. It's choosing present evidence over ancestral memory. If today's exploration has helped you understand that your ocean fear is actually an evolutionary success story operating in a modern context, then get ready for our next descent. We're about to shrink our focus dramatically, from kilometers of ocean depth to millimeters of spider legs. Why can something 50,000 times smaller than you create paralyzing terror? Why does the sight of 8 legs trigger a response disproportionate to any actual threat? Arachnophobia awaits us, and its neurological secrets are every bit as profound as what we've uncovered about the ocean. Subscribe to Anatomy of Fear and hit the notification bell. The next dive changes our scale, but not our depth of exploration. For now, remember this. Every time the ocean seems like an infinite, terrifying abyss, you're actually seeing the reflection of your own incredible evolutionary inheritance. Today, you've learned not to fear the reflection, but to understand its origin and to choose how you respond.